What's up, everybody? We are here with a special guest for our throw show. We got Cici Onyekwere, a discus thrower, our discus thrower from Throws University and from Garage Strength, and she represents Nigeria. She is one of the best female discus throwers in the entire world, and on top of that, she's about to head to Tokyo. We're about to head to Tokyo in the next, 5 or 6 days, and Cici is responsible for all of my administrative work to get over to Tokyo. So thank you for that, Cici.
You're very welcome.
So, Cici, before we start and go through like your rise to getting to Doha, getting to the World Championships, you got 13th there. You almost made the final.
Yeah.
And then qualifying for Tokyo this past year with dominating with your world ranking, having a really good 2021 season. Before we even go into this, and I just had an interview with the paper, and they actually brought you up on what it's like to train. For me, what it's like to train athletes that it's their full-time job to be an athlete, versus training someone who is as versatile as you. And I was describing how yesterday you came in and you were like in charge of a business meeting with Ford, and you're just running everything. Controlling everything, and then you get off the phone and 25 minutes later you're throwing 60 meters in training. And I just brought up, to me, like it's hard for some athletes to warm up and then go throw, let alone run a meeting, warm up, and then go throw far. And I wanted, before we get into this, what goes through your mind, or what do you think you've taken from being, working full time and being an engineer? I don't even know your official term, so you can fill us in on that. But what have you taken from the business world, that you utilize in throwing, and vice versa? And how do you even manage this all?
Yeah, I think it probably goes back to just being a student athlete at University of Maryland. Obviously, I was studying mechanical engineering there, and it's a rigorous workload. So I had to manage doing that, as well as like also competing at a high level in NCAAs and Big Ten. So I just took a lot of the time management skills that I learned very early on and just kind of pulled that into the workforce while I was starting my professional career as a discus thrower and working as a first-time engineer in the full workforce for Ford Motor Company. Right.
So. I mean, you've balanced it well. Your PR has increased dramatically. And even, we'll start off right here. So this is in April of 2019. So this is just around exactly 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And your best at the time was this throw of 58.35.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, here we are, and you're throwing 63.30.
Yeah, insane.
It's crazy. It's 5 meters in 2 years. So let's add another 5 meters in 2 years. So what do you think has changed the most?
I would say for sure I've gotten a lot technically better working with you. I think just like most of the time when I was at University of Maryland, like there wasn't really time to develop an athlete. So it was more just use what they have and kind of like try to produce far throws with it. Because I think when I left university, I was only throwing 54 meters. So when I hit this 58-meter throw with this technique, I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic. I am definitely not as quick as I was back then, but like I've grown a lot more technique-wise, and I think we'll see that in a couple of other videos.
Yeah, as we work through. So we're gonna get into this. I think this might actually be the first time that I met you.
Yeah.
I think so, because I remember you saying like, is either the first or second time?
It might be the second time, because this is, I think...
Maybe it was the year prior I met you.
You met me the year prior, because that was when I was starting my professional career.
And you might have come to our camp then.
Yeah,
this year,
sometime. Yeah.
When you broke the wall.
After this meet, yeah.
So this is right around the beginning, I mean, essentially New Year's Eve.
I think this is really the beginning of like where I like really start like honing into my craft and really just be like, yeah, you can do this. You can take this to next level.
Yeah.
So this kind of really just said it, because I think that when I first started my professional career, I was only still just throwing 54 meters, so there was not really any PRs. And then this kind of was like the big start for me. And after that, I started PRing like pretty much each year following this. So this really kind of like started the momentum for me completely for my professional career.
And this is the big throw. Actually, before we get into this, I think one of the cool parts about this throw is that I was at a Little League baseball game, and I don't like to take phone calls at all. Like, I very rarely will answer the phone when someone's calling me, let alone a FaceTime. And I felt my phone vibrating, so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to see who's calling me. And usually what I do is I look at who's calling me and I just don't answer. But I see that Cici's calling me and I'm like, oh shit, something must have happened. So in my mind, I'm like, I got to pick up the phone. Cici's FaceTiming me. And so I answer the phone and you're like, oh, guess what?
Yeah, I was like, I wanted you to guess because I was like, you're not going to believe this crap. You're not going to believe what just happened. And so I needed to see your face too when I told you the news.
So I was like, oh my God, you threw 63-30. And I knew that at the time it was, I think what's awesome is you broke the Nigerian record, which is something we had even talked about in Doha, is that you were close, like 20 or 30 centimeters off of that in Doha. And then to come back, and think about this was posted on April 25th. So that was literally 2 years from that first throw that we watched that you did end up PRing. So in those 2 years, and on top of that, this competition was stacked. Like everybody was at this meet. So I think that was another huge thing is that you've grown technically, but you've also grown as a competitor with the best throwers in the world. That's also why your world ranking is so high too. So how did this feel? Walk us through this.
No, so I think one of the athletes, Rachel Dinkoff, who throws for the U.S., we had become kind of travel buddies this year just to kind of cut down on expenses. So that's been super helpful for me. We were talking right before this meet and saying like we wanted PR this meet, and we actually like, I don't want to say joked, or like I would say more spoken to existence that we were both going to PR in this meet. And she had just PR'd and threw 62.01 meters. And she said, it's too good of a time to like waste an opportunity. And that really clicked for me right before I was going to step in. So I just said, forget everything, just get after it. And I did. And I didn't even think it was going that far. I was like, oh, very cool. That's like high 61s. Like, that's good. Like, probably not too far off my PR. So that's a good way to be. So I'd step out, I was chilling, and then I heard him say 63. I couldn't even hear anything else. I just screamed.
I was going to say, that's probably happening right now in this video.
I just screamed. So I was shocked and super excited to know that all the hard work had paid off.
And I do think that that's one downfall with me coaching you is that sometimes, me as a coach, I tend to like, there's one technical error, it's like, all right, let's beat this until it goes away, and then as soon as there's another one, and sometimes I feel like I do create this almost like paralysis by analysis sometimes with my athletes, and I think that that's one thing, especially going into Tokyo, that I'm trying to do a better job with. So this is me telling you this as a coach.
Elaborate a little bit more on that.
Is to try to like back off from really getting nitpicky with your technique and being like, all right, just get consistent so that when you get into Tokyo, it's almost like what you had just said with Rachel, like, dude, I'm just going to get in and throw.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for me, just because for me, just the way I work, I like to focus on like tiny, minute details, and I think that helps me better. And I see it as more like, hey, we're going to fix this first, and then you're going to graduate to the next thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't necessarily have an issue with that personally, because that's just what I do for work. I'll like keep trying to like work out the same problem.
Improve the Ford Explorer.
Yeah. So it works for me. But I liked what we've been doing, and it's good to finally see how it progressed now, because 2020 obviously like there weren't really a whole lot of competitions. You threw a couple meets here, so we were able to have some throws in, but it just wasn't the same.
Right.
And we pretty much worked completely new technique all of 2020. So this year was really my first chance to see how exactly it worked.
Execute, yeah.
And usually I have that gratification of a meet to be like, okay, you're doing things right. Like you're not going downhill. So this season, it did start a little rough for me, but it progressed. And I think that's more just to stress on other uncontrollable circumstances. So. Okay,
so here's a question as a coach.
Yeah.
We're heading into Tokyo. We've got, I think, 16 days. I might be 15. We have a couple sessions left here in Pennsylvania, which I will be a little nitpicky with technique, a little bit, like today, a little. Nothing overbearing. When we're in Tokyo, would you prefer basically like one cue each session, and that would be like the cue that we're going to focus on when you compete? Or is it like find two things? You know, how do you see that?
I think usually in competitions, I will either focus on one thing or two things. But I say if we keep it similar to what we were doing in Doha, that's more than fine with me. Even if we were picking on a couple things for a couple days in competition, I usually turn to a completely different person when I'm competing compared to practice. So
Doha, you PR'd and you fell over on that throw.
Yeah.
And you PR'd.
Actually, my very first competition that I did with kind of like a bunch of the big girls was Continental Cup. I had like falled in one of my throws. Like it literally looked like I was breakdancing. I think I need to find that picture, but it was bad. So I think that's probably the main reason why I'm so confident going against Sandra and Yami. I was like, I already fell in front of you guys. Like, I'm good. Like this is fine. Like it's all right.
Okay, so this is you winning the Nigerian National Championship, throwing 62.50, I think this throw was.
Yeah.
Oh,
62.20.
I actually really, really like this throw from a technical perspective. I thought you did a good job coming out of the back of the circle. I also love that as well. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was big hype.
That's actually, I want to turn the volume up on this.
That's my teammate shot
62.20 meters.
Oh, this is on TikTok.
Yeah.
Olympic qualifier. Tokyo, here we come.
I was super hype after that because that was the last thing to be like, okay, you've made the team.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Just need to just win, throw far, and show them that you can keep throwing far going on.
I think this throw, you know, out of the back, you hit a good position. That left leg grounds really well. If you finish maybe like a tad bit more, just a little bit more, this is a throw that I see if you can get to Tokyo, and let's say you have 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine in you, and you're in that setting where you just compete like an animal. I think when you're around the big girls like you, the big women, you rise to their level. I think with that movement, like you could shock a lot of people.
Yeah,
really
that's funny you say that because I had almost too much caffeine and I was super dehydrated in that meet.
Okay.
So I had a cramp right like my third throw before this. Actually, this was my last throw that we're seeing here, but right before I was going to my third throw, I had a major leg cramp. Like I could barely get on my left, and it took all the way up until this one. I was just starting to feel better now. And my coach said, and for like Team Nigeria said, just gamble, do a gamble, and just get after it. And it's funny because that's the same thing I did when I had that PR.
Right.
I just went after it.
So that's okay. So that's got to be one of the cues in Tokyo.
Gotta gamble, get after it.
Okay, so this is at the training track.
It was hot.
Yeah, it was extraordinarily hot. And even here, comparing this, if you watching this in 19 compared to where you were in or where you, to right now, you know, at the Nigerian champs, watching the difference in your right side out of the back. In the last throw, you do a much better job getting around that left. And because that's where you lead,
a lot too, and I'm really happy.
So it's like now what I think's crazy is you've ironed that out. You've ironed this throw out of you, I think.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna start to get consistent with your new movement, and that's where it's like, dude, the sky's the limit with you. Like you've got so much, like physical, mental talent that. Like, dude, you PR'd it at this meet throwing like this, and now with your new movement, it's like mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think when you see this?
No,
other than the heat.
This looks really.
It's also like 11 o'clock at night.
I know this was like really bad from what I'm like looking at now, but like it goes back to kind of like when I started competing professionally in college. All they did was just make the skills you had work going back to that Grand Rapids, it was just me just using my speed and having a good finish.
Yeah.
Somebody here, I was really just using the talents I had already developed, which was my finish. So I think now I've got to hone in on like technique and gotten a better entry to kind of get stuff going. So
now your finish is even better.
yeah, finish is a lot better. I'm throwing way more consistently. So just goes to show you.
And this was my footage, actually. I'm so proud of myself. I want to point out, too, before we go into this, I remember going to this qualification and just thinking, Cici can get to the top 12. And at one point, like, I think you might have been 11 or 12. I think you were 11 and you two bumped you out.
Yeah.
But I think, what throw was this?
This is my first throw.
Okay. So let's check this out. I just love watching this old stuff.
And I like barely use the circle too.
But I think that's what's cool is like even, you know, I wasn't sure, you know, you'd never been to Worlds before. You had African champs, you'd had the Continental Cup, or African Games.
Yeah.
You've been to really big meets, but you had never been to a World Championships before. And I believe that this competition, the experience of this comp, is going to lead to a positive outcome in Tokyo because of that work, because of that experience getting in there. And you were still confident, even though you weren't super consistent with your technique back then, you were still confident in your capability to go and perform at a high level.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm interested to see is now you've had a good year, you've had a good season of 2021, and now as we really start to taper back and you start to feel pretty good, I'm excited for what's about to happen in Tokyo. Even in training, like when you're not entirely on, like today I thought it was a good session. I don't think it was like amazing. I don't think it was bad either. I think it was a very good session. It's like, dude, you have multiple throws that were really, really pretty big throws. So it's going to be fun to watch, like once we get there and the lights are on and you're ready to compete, you know, just smashing monster bombs.
Yeah, and it's really show because when I go back and go pick up my discs after throwing, all my discs are all lined up like around the same area, and it's like, before it'd be like one's over here past the sector line, one's like really far short, like I'm walking all over the field to find my disc.
So your mileage like, walked in a training session has dramatically
it's dropped, so it's good. So it's like, okay, I'm doing something right.
All right, so how are you going to prepare, how are you going to deal with managing your job? You know, did Ford make you take time off, or have you chosen to take time off? How are you going to manage leaving for, 10 to 15 days, whatever it's going to be exactly, and then just focus on that one task at hand, which is to go to the Olympics and drop some bombs?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
So really for me, work has been really, anytime I have an international meet, they've been really flexible. I don't work at all anytime I'm at an international meet, which is really puts just training and competing my main focus. And I think that's why I also always compete so well, because now we have a factor that's in my everyday competition here that's completely removed. So then I excel even more and surprise myself even more when we come to competition. So once I get on that plane, everything is on my focus for a straight Tokyo.
Yeah.
No wedding stuff, no work stuff, no family stuff. Like, it's just focusing on training, throwing big, dropping some bombs. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think I have a lot to showcase to the world. So
yeah, I'm excited
to show them.
I am extremely excited, and I've bragged about you to quite a few coaches. I can't wait, because I think that you are the thrower that no one really does know about.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun. Thanks for coming on the Throw Show. I can't wait to get to Tokyo to coach you guys and spend time in the village and just enjoy that whole process, all while going out and shocking the throws world.
Yeah.
Peace.